Oh, that's Good evening, everyone. I'm Dhvani Mehta from Vidhi, and I'm pleased to welcome you all today to our book Adda series. I'm in conversation today with Jerry Pinto, poet and novelist par excellence, and the author, among many other brilliant works, of A Good Life for the Power of Palliative Care. We're so grateful to you, Jerry, for coming from Bombay, especially for this discussion. This conversation could not be timelier. Last week, Justices Partiwala and Vishwanathan of the Supreme Court, in a sensitive and humane judgment, confirmed that life-sustaining treatment could be withdrawn from Harish Rana, who has been in a permanent vegetative state for the last 13 years. In a heartwarming boost to palliative care, the court said, additionally, that withdrawal should not mean the abandonment of a patient, but should instead be accompanied by a palliative and end-of-life care plan. In today's discussion with Jerry, we want to explore what palliative care means, who are the people behind it, what are some of the challenges with integrating it into our healthcare systems, and what we can learn about the human condition and spirit from it. Jerry has spent, I think, over a year and a half immersing himself in the palliative care ecosystem. And while we have works like Dr. Abdul Gawande's on Being Mortal and Dr. Rajgopal's Walking with the Weary, Walk with the Weary, who talked about their personal experiences as physicians. I think a good life is the first time that we have, in some sense, a third person account that understands and celebrates these unsung heroes of the healthcare system. So, Jerry, first of all, thank you so much for writing this book. It's an issue that we are very passionate about at Vidhi and have worked on for the last decade with people like Dr. Mani here in the audience, and people like Dr. Indra who have been very passionate about promoting palliative and supportive care. You might ask what is it that the law has to do with palliative care? Maybe that's for another time and another book. And we've had the privilege of interacting with many of the wonderful doctors you've spoken to and written about in your book, and our lives are the richer for it. Over the last year, under the umbrella of the Advanced Care Planning Collective, Advanced Care Planning India, we have been trying to promote informed and sensitive conversations about death and dying through the Good to Go initiative. This is a very important one of those, and we hope that we can reach many people today through this interaction with you. Jenny, would you like to say a few preliminary words, or shall I dive into the questions? So maybe could I just ask you what you personally felt when you were approached to write this book? I understand that there is a personal element for you as well. Was there trepidation? Was there curiosity? Were there any preconceptions that you had? Yeah, I think it would be wonderful for all of us to get a little insight into the research and writing process. Sure. Thank you, Vidhi, for inviting me, and thank you for the wonderful work that you seem to have been doing, especially with helping with the runners who must have needed very much some good hand holding and some serious legal advice at the same time. I was not approached, I approached actually. And it so happened that I have a good friend, Nelly Gopai. He was a painter in Bombay. And towards the end of his life, he was about 75. Put up your hands if you have a will. Oh, well done. That's like in Vidhi, we've got like about 10% of everybody who's got a will. Anyway, that's called advanced planning. Or it is the wonderful image in the Upanishads, where he asks what is the greatest wonder. And the greatest wonder is that man who knows he is mortal behaves as though he is immortal, which means I'm going to die. Yes. So, anyway, please make a will. It really, or just like leave it to them to fight. Or maybe you'd like to leave behind a whole boring bunch of relatives, then just leave them without a will. Okay. So he said when he was going to make his will, he said 25% of the money would go to children's charities, because I was working with a lot with children.
25% would go to a hospital, an animal hospital, where he had seen a very happy buffalo. And he liked buffaloes. So therefore, he was going to leave 25% of it to that. 25% of it would go to um, artists' charities and 25% to the family. So I thought, of course, that the family would object, but they being Parsis were quite happy and allowed it to proceed. And I suddenly realized when we started the dissolution of the estate that he had left a lot of money. And so, it wasn't just about writing one check, but it would be writing about many checks. So I started asking friends, and someone said, why don't you go to Adda Hospital, where they are working, they have a palliative care ward for children. And to me, that was such a moment of horror, really. In fact, like a moral crisis moment. To think of children in the shadow of death. It's just not, it doesn't sound fair. It doesn't sound right. But I did go, and I did meet Dr. Veronique, lovely woman, who told me, if you give lots of money to this hospital, they will buy a big machine. And then they will take all our patients and push them through that machine. Because once they have a toy, they must play with the toy. Please, could you instead give us money to hire a book and toy librarian who will help the children read and play and feel better? And I thought, I don't think this could be better for a writer, because I've always believed that if I feel better, I heal better. Right? And so child who's laughing, who's joking, who's enjoying himself. So we don't, we paid for 5 years of salary for that book and toy librarian, and we were off and running. 3 months later, I visited, walked through the hospital with him, and he was a rock star. Everywhere he went, people, the little kids would shout, Azoba! Like grandfather, because he's got white hair. Azoba! It's just like so delighted that someone was coming who was going to prod them, who was going to pinch them or poke them or twist them or tweak them, just sit with them and read to them. So lovely to see such a response. Completely sold, and I came down and I was leaving. And Dr. Dillon says to me, tomorrow we have a workshop for washing dead babies. Would you like to come? And I thought, no, I don't think I can handle that. I really don't think I want to. But if you're a journalist, you know that when you know that you should, when you should go. So the next morning I did go. I kept saying to myself, Jerry, don't worry. It'll just be a doll. You'll have a doll and it'll be okay. It's all right. It wasn't a doll. It was a real baby. And I died that morning. And his parents were there. And this Irish nun was there with them, who washed the baby and prayed over it and talked us through all things that we could do to help parents deal with this loss. And I felt, it was life changing. That moment was just completely life changing. And I was crying, and because you've been trained in a certain way, you don't want to sob. So you're crying without sound, which is very painful. And then I realized that everyone was crying. Doctors, nurses, ward boys, ayahs, who had washed hundreds of dead babies, all crying. And as I went down, one of the ayahs said to me, you know what we used to do? So take a bucket, fill it with water, put some Dettol in it, and shake the baby in it. Itna paak kiya tha. And I hugged her because there's no way to say it. It just there's nothing to say. So we stood and we waited, and then I left. And as it was going on, my students, because I taught in the social communications media department of Power Polytechnic for more years than I care to remember. And one of my students was coming in and I said, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm writing a book on palliative care. And I said, oh, how wonderful. If there's anything I can do to help you, just let me know. I'll edit it for you. I'll do anything. She looked a bit startled because I'm a fairly remote teacher. I was kind of like offering all kinds of help. And I was so delighted that there was this book, and I marched off happily. And I thought, I can park all of this. I don't have to think about it. Someone else is. And 3 months later, I met this young woman and I said, how's the book going? And she said, oh, I couldn't handle it. It was just too much. They were asking about dead babies. I'm not doing any of that. I thought, and by chance, the next week I saw Ruana, her maid, who was of Sipla, who was funding the book. I saw her across the room and I walked across and I said, if no one is doing that palliative care book, I will. And she said, you will? I said, yeah, I will. And we were off. That's sorry, a very long story for how I started this process. But after that, every fortnight, I bumped into the kind of story that, you think this is a gift. This is something that has been made possible because you're just opening yourself to that possibility that you might be upgraded by this story. Because none of the stories were beautiful in a way, and all of them were startlingly beautiful. I remember going into this small room with a Muslim woman and her son, 14 years old and 13 kg, in beyond belief, because he has a neurological disease. And it was the first visit. The child was checked over, and the doctor came and said, very good care she has taken of him. Because even the teeth are clean, there are no cavities, so she must be really doing her best. And then the nurse said, we also have, as a palliative care team, we also have counseling. So we can give you counseling for this, get you through this. And she said something that really startled me. She said, right now it's Ramzan, मैं रोजा रख रही हूँ. I'm keeping the fast for Ramzan. So I need nothing. I need no support. Because this is the month in which the Holy Quran came to the earth. And I'm rejoiced. But when this fast is over, I will need help. And I thought it would be the exact opposite. That when she was fasting, she would need more help. This is how I think why we need to be listening to each other all the time. Why we need to be actively listening to each other. Because the stories are so wonderful, so rare. And I was so privileged over the 1.5 years, just meeting again and again people who showed me the greatness of the human spirit and its great fallibility as well. Because there was often people who would break down and say, I said to him, after 6 months of cleaning his shit and piss, I said to him, why don't you just die? I can't believe I said that. Don't know how I said that. And you don't have any comfort for them. But all you can say is, I had a mother who was sick, a bipolar mother. And I said that to her. And I didn't mean it. And I meant it at the same time. I would not have meant it 10 minutes later. I would not have meant it 10 minutes earlier. But in that moment, it was there. And it was at the tip of some volcano of rage. And it came out. So don't worry, we are all human. And we say these things to each other.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, I don't really have any words. As you said, the book is also in a sad stories, it's still also heartwarming affirmation of the human spirit. But I think for the folks who do work in palliative care, they're often told by others outside the ecosystem that actually I don't want to talk about these issues. I don't want to get anywhere close to this because it's too sad. We can't deal with it. We don't want to talk about death and it could be superstition, it could be taboo, it could be it's seen as a rejection of everything that is supposed to be optimistic about medicine. So I think one of the challenges that we face is how do we get over this barrier and how do we get people to stop sticking their head in the sand about this? And what are the methods of communication that we need to adopt?
I think, for me, it has always been the story. Because if you start telling a palliative care story, the end product is not going to be anything like you think it is, but the story itself is going to remain. Like there was this woman who came into Karunashra in Bangalore. She had about 4 months to live. And they asked her eventually, is there anything on your bucket list? And she said, I want to meet my son again. And they said, nothing. Oh, we didn't know you had a son. She said, yes, when he was 3 years old, I abandoned him. I left him to go and to leave his father to go and live with my lover. And for the next 25 years, I have not seen him. And now I would like to meet him again. And they said, okay, what is his name and where can do you have a number or something? She said, I know his name. And I know that he's a lawyer in Delhi. I don't know anything else about it. And this doctor went home. The doctor had heard that, and he had a friend over. The friend said, asked him about what is, he said, this story. He told this story that this woman said this to him. And the friend said, "Arey yaar, I have a lawyer, a son who's a lawyer in Delhi. He will find out. This is very like classic India. Anybody who hears I'm from Goa says to me, I have a girlfriend. You must know him. He is Pereira. Yes, of course I know Pereira. We all, five of us. Very good. So, and he called up the son right away and said, find out this lawyer. Son said, Dad, this is Delhi. Like, imagine how many lawyers there are there. Okay. But the father was like old fashioned. Hey, yeah, kar le yaar. Tell me tomorrow morning. I want the number of this boy. And apparently there is a federation of all of you lawyers in there. There's a stigma on that list. And you're a lawyer. Okay. And the boy was located. And so Karunashra rang him up, the social worker rang him up and said, your mother would like to see you. And he said, can't see mother. What mother? She died when I was 3 years old. His father had told him that his mother had died to prevent him from feeling grief of abandonment or being abandoned by his mother. And when they explained this to him, he said, she left me. I didn't leave her. I'm not coming. And the social worker, bless her heart, let it go at that point, but called him again in a few days and said, I don't know if you thought about it, but you have a living mother. Have you thought about that? Just think about that. Just that much. Think, you have a living mother. And called him 2 days later and said, do you think you might want to come? And the boy said, I'm not coming. Please don't call me. This is harassment and I will file against Karunashra, lawyer language, all that. But 2 days later, he called. And he said, I won't come, but I'll talk to her on the phone. So she said, okay. And he said, I will tell her what I think. She said, okay, you tell her what you think, but you talk to her. And he did talk for an hour. And one day before she died, he came and he saw her. And the social worker could not be there because it was a private home, but she saw him hug her before he left. And that was it. And so many things I love about this story. That it is life affirming. That you can do things and it can be connected. A little of it can be connected. That there is a doctor who can step out of his role and be detected. That there's a social worker who constantly tries. And that there's a mother and son who have one last hug and she goes. What about this is depressing? It's lovely. It's beautiful. For me, it shines. It's one of my shining moment stories. Just as simple as that. That death is also a moment at which life can be celebrated.
Absolutely.
And so many like that. But the woman who turned up and said, I will be buried in a red dress, but I want a tattoo. In the middle of COVID, she wants a tattoo. And she wants a tattoo which says 7 years free. Why? For 7 years, she beat that blasted cancer. Now it's back, but she's focusing on herself. Yes. God love these people.
Oh, absolutely. And there are people who are able to face death as a beautiful thing as well. But this is something that we find that doctors themselves are unable to do. Now, of course, here I'm not talking about palliative care doctors, but oncologists.
Well, there was a moment. I was at a conference where Dr. Rajam Iyer was a lovely doctor, was addressing a whole bunch of doctors at Hinduja Hospital. 100 doctors in Hinduja Hospital, talking to them about difficult conversations, about the fact that you have to tell a patient sometimes, patient has COPD. They will never get better, right? At least as our understanding of problems is that they will never get better. But how do you tell them that their life is now on a downhill track? Yeah. All these. And then she asked a question at the end, very weighted, a strange question. She said, how many of you are comfortable talking about death to your patients? One hand went up in a hundred. One hand. And that hand belonged to Dr. Rupur Sahan, who also works in palliative care. And I took that. So, how is it that these men who know more and women, who know more than anybody, what a beautiful organism this is, but how its beauty has a limited time. And then after that, it is over. They have spent their years listening in on the intricacies of this body. And they are actually glorious. If you read Oliver Sacks or Louis Thompson or any of them, you just see what a wonder is the human body. And that we are just able to walk seems like just wildly improbable. Okay? So much goes into it. And these people are reluctant to talk about death. Unable, uncomfortable with this world. Because in the old days, according to me, health was run by women. Right? When you felt ill, you went to your nanny. You went to your daddy, your mother. You asked her. You to spinning longa tel malata. Okay. She would she'd make some jari booty. And she knew when you could not be fed. And she told you to lie down. And she kept you as comfortable as she could. All of India grew poppies. But as a side business, you grew your bajri, but you grew poppies in the little patch. And you kept the poppies, the opium, the perfume, various things like stomach ache and for putting a fractious baby to sleep or going to war with a little touch of opium in your mouth. We did that. But when the pharmaceutical industry became an industry, when hospitals became businesses, when doctors had to pay 1 crore capitation fee to get their MD, the whole system began to change and began to become, I'm sorry to say this, capitalist. And then whenever I have talked about this, people have come up to me and said, yes, and doctors see us as the ATM machine. The patient is an ATM machine. Some doctors probably. And Dr. Almeida Fernandez, wonderful woman, palliative care expert in Bombay, set up the first human milk bank. Said to me, she said 30% of all doctors really care. They want to work hard. They want you to get better. They want people to get better. 30% of doctors will do their job. They don't care, but they will do their job as best they can. Anyway, it is a job for them, and then they go home and forget about it. 30% of doctors are just complete. She didn't use the word, but I would say rectums. Okay. They're like really awful people. And 10% you can't. They could go either way. And I love that. So I don't want to demonize doctors and I don't want to pedestrianize them. So you meet a doctor in a public hospital sometimes and you think, I don't know how you manage this. I don't know how you take. It's just like this wave of patients coming in every day. And almost everybody is unhealthy. There's this beautiful poem by Heath Patel called "How Do You Withstand the Body?" He was a doctor himself in a public hospital, and his patient, he says, is so thin that what can I do for you? I can only string you up and throw you up into the sky. It's like flying a kite. It's a beautiful image that I saved. That doctors are also of different kinds, patients are different. The healthcare system is very broken. Where it is in beautiful shape, it is capitalist in our orientation. We have so much going for us and so much going against us simultaneously that I'm so grateful that Vidhi is actually working in health reform, in thinking these things through, because we need the hero doctor at her desk or at her in the operation theatre. We need that nurse who will get up and come to your bedside and just hold your hand. We need that physiotherapist. We need that counselor. We need that social worker. But we also need someone looking at macro issues. So all this together, and then we can make change.
Absolutely. And it's very clear from the book that it takes a village because you've spoken about palliative care as encompassing not just the doctor but everyone in this team, from an occupational therapist to a palliative care volunteer to a counselor to a social worker to a patient navigator as an equal. But do you think we have the kind of community that is needed to make that happen? And is modern medicine structured like that? And everyone talks about the exceptionalism of the Kerala model, but you've traveled all across the country. What is your idea about the potential for replication in other places?
It is time to show those Malayalis that they are not the only people who can pull this off. The Kerala model is wonderful and it had great physics. It can be replicated anywhere. Put up your hand if you do not know a person who is ill. It's exactly like that Buddhist story. Give me a handful of mustard from the house that has not known death. So if we all know someone who is ill, put up your hand if you are part of the solution for their illness, or you just ignored them. Yeah. So I'm saying this is what happens, right? We know someone is ill, but we can be part of the. And please don't say when that dread diagnosis happens, when the person has had that terrible accident, don't go and say, if there's anything I can do, you must tell me. Because they can't think. They don't know what to ask. Instead, go and say, I will give you lunch tomorrow. Don't go. And if you need it for the rest of the week, I can bring you lunch. Just tell me. I will take the children to college. I mean to school. You go for go free of any thought. You go for chemotherapy. Now you are part of the solution. You are part of palliative care. You're already part of it. It's when we accept that this body that has been given to us, its beauty and its fragility is part of our common inheritance. And that if we look after each other, it can be so much better. Everything can be so much better. But we must do. We are not, you may not ever be able to go and give an injection. But you can sit with the person who's having the injection and say, I also need So, okay, yeah, you talk to me, we'll sing together, let her give the injection. You can do kind of stuff. You can go and play with the kids. You can do what you can do. That's all you're being called on to. Do not do it as a sacrifice. There are enough sacrificial people in India making everyone feel horrible that they're being sacrificed. Do it out of love. Or whomever you love. Just make sure that you're part of the solution, not part of the problem. That is where the palliative care comes. Then we will have, like, Pallium has worked so hard so that, we've got palliative care on the MD syllabus. It's part of the national health program right now. Palliative care is required to be, in Maharashtra starting palliative care. States are beginning to wake up. There aren't patient navigators because, my gosh, there's, another story. I meet a 14-year-old boy with one eye. He's in hospital, he's had his operation. And his grandfather is with him. His grandfather tells me we would not be here if this boy had not done, like, completely, like, he was determined. So they live outside Patna, 14 hours by bus to Patna. Then from Patna to Delhi in an unreserved compartment. But people see that the boy's eye is out of his head now, being pushed by the cancer from his skull. It's being pushed out of his head. So they give him place to sleep. They come to Delhi station and some auto wala come who can see how sick this boy is. The grandfather is asking, please take us to AIMS, charges them 300 rupees. They get down at AIMS and the father is taking out these 300s. Another man comes up and says, where did you come from? So he said, from the railway station. He said, 300? Ridiculous. You were cheated. As they go to approach AIMS, a tout appears and says, this is a parchi. It costs 100 rupees and then I will take you inside to see the doctor. So by now the boy is sharp and goes to the guard and says, does it cost to get in here? The guard said, no, come on. And at this point, the grandfather's spirit is broken. And he says, ये हमारे लिए नहीं है, कल चलेगा. Let's just go. But the boy is insistent. He says he's going inside. And his first question, what a lucky, inspired question is, कौन यहाँ है जो मेरा मदद कर सकता? And he said, the palliative care opinions. And from there, everything falls into this. But he asked the right question. Who here can help me? I want help. I need help. I expect help. I deserve help. I am entitled to your help. This entire institution was built for me as a citizen. Why am I not being helped? When do we get to this point when healthcare becomes our right rather than us going and asking, please, can I see the doctor? Please just look at my patient. And then sitting there on that bed, I say, so what is it? What are you up to these days? And you had your operation? He says, yeah, but I want to go home now. I have my exams. 10th standard exams, and Didi brought some books, but they were Delhi board. I don't want Delhi board, I want Bihar board. So I'm doing some work here, but it's not enough. I'm going home to do my exams. And everywhere across the country, when I visited children in palliative care wards, they wanted to sit for their exams. Because that's a sign of being normal. That's what the healthy kids are doing. 16-year-old boy, 3 months to live. I want a driving license. So one of the other doctors, not a palliative care doctor, says, driving license leke kya karega? What will he drive? He doesn't have anything in the family. You shut up. You shut up. It's not your life. If he wants a driving license, he gets a driving license. And he got it. And he went with his driving license. 12-year-old boy. I want a strolley. Packed the strolley with everything that he was ready, that he wanted to take on his last journey. When the strolley was packed, he left. What about these stories makes you sad?
I think they're just inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as lawyers, we have all the rhetoric, we have the language, we know what a right to health means when it's articulated by the Supreme Court, but it's implemented by people like this who understand that it's not just about providing a certain kind of treatment and sending them on their way, but recognizing that that person is a person with all kinds of needs, with all kinds of structural issues affecting them. And for me, actually, that was the more eye-opening part of palliative care. And I think I was reasonably well informed to know that okay, palliative care is not about giving up. But when it was Pallium India, and the work doctor was like Dr. Dhvani, Dr. Roop, that showed me that it's about understanding everything that is affecting that person. It could be finances, it could be family, it could be exams in school, and that was the insight that really that really shook me, and I think that should inform all our approaches to healthcare and other socio-economic rights as well. So, there are some myths about palliative care, or, as well as some some of the friends that I work with will say actually there are truths that people would like to advance about palliative care. It's not about giving up, it's not about letting go, it's not only about the end of life. So, could you share some of the truths that you discovered along the way?
Okay, the first one is that the first myth is that palliative care is about end of life. It really depends on how you define end of life, sweetie, because right now you're at the end of life. Like, I mean, how you do not know? You could walk out of here and done, right? So this end of life, that there is someone that there is one particular patch that is called end of life. First of all, shut up. I mean, you've not thought about life if you're thinking palliative care is about end of life. That's the first thing. The second is simple thing. If you take an 8-year-old boy, he has been spent his life running about, jumping, shouting. The last few months, what's happened is that he's constantly tired. He's constantly hungry. He keeps running in, mujhe roti do, mujhe roti do. He eats, he's constantly thirsty. Give me water, give me water, give me water. He's constantly peeing. And he's taken to the hospital. And the doctor says, diabetes. All of you saw Munna Bhai MBBS, no? So you should have known the answer. Normally, like excessive thirst, excessive urination, excessive fatigue are the three signs of diabetes. Even Sanjay Dutt knows. Yeah. Now this kid has diabetes. That word has changed his life. Tomorrow, when he goes to school and it is happy birthday of one of the boys or one of the children, or everyone gets a sweet, he has to say no. For him, up to now, sugar has been his choice of drug. Right? Everything in his life is meetha karo. All festivals are associated with sugar. All birthdays, all celebrations are sugar. And he must now say no. Who is to help that boy navigate this? I remember sitting together, with a bunch of children who are waiting for kidney transplants. Okay, support group, whole bunch sitting together, and one boy looking very sad, and so his the other friend says, "Kya hua?" Like older boy who's had dialysis for 4 years. So it says, "I miss Uncle Chips." Oh, chips, let us say, Uncle Chips cut out of this. We will think I'm really fabulous. Versus chips चाहिए खा लेना जोर से खा the social workers all टेंशन होते डायलिसिस करते वक्त दबा के खा कुछ नहीं होने वाले. And the social worker went and asked the doctor, is this true? Doctor said, yeah, during the time when you are on the dialysis is going on, that time they can. Yes. And I thought, what a hack. See, this is a life hack. And where did it come from? The doctor thought to say to this kid was wrong. But someone else did and gave him a solution also. That kid is coming armed with chips now. Like 18 varieties. That's going to do. Okay? But this comes out of the intelligence of the community. And creating community is something that also palliative care. Think of a mother. She's had 7 children. Okay, why demonize her? She's had, her child comes and she's having a child with Down syndrome. What does she know now? What is she to expect? What is she not to expect? She has no idea. But if 10 mothers who have Down syndrome children at various stages of their lives can come together and give her some support, give her advice, tell her, don't worry, this happens. Don't worry, that's ordinary. Don't worry, oh, no, maybe you should talk to the doctor about this. There's a difference, no? That is something that everybody can do. And even, for instance, like caregivers. Caregivers have burnout and because most caregivers in this country are women. Someone falls ill and the whole schedule of the house has to change. But it's not the whole house schedule. Husband goes to work peacefully, children go to school, but woman is adjusting. Getting up earlier, cooking separate food, going and washing down, cleaning, taking the bed sheets out, washing them, hanging them out, coming there, saying where are your pills, giving those pills, adjusting that, just constant, all the care is on. And she must appear strong. And she must appear loving. And she must do everything else that she has always done in the same way. Where's the support? Where's the support? Only other caregivers can know what it's like. And can tell you, it's okay. You said that terrible thing. That's all right also. I've been there, I said. That's what palliative care does. So at some level, it seems like I remember the first time I heard that palliative care looks at not just physical pain, but also mental pain and spiritual pain because you feel abandoned by God. Every day I prayed to you. Every day I lit a candle. Every day I went to church. Every day I did namaz. Every day I sat down and thought about you. And you did this to me. You sent me this disease. And that politician is walking around with nothing. It's terrible. You feel so abandoned by God. So there's spiritual pain. Okay. And there's economic pain. Oh, there is a medicine. Okay, how much? 18,000 rupees a month. That is my salary. How am I supposed to pay this? Oh, there's an operation. 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs for the operation. Bureaucratic pain. Please bring your Aadhaar card, your ration card, your PAN number, bring everything. Bring every detail that you can. Bring them all and show them here. And you know this. Everyone in the middle class knows this. Whatever papers we bring, 8 come there. There is one paper that is missing. And the joy with which they send you back to get other paper. Okay. Anyway, all this, palliative care sets itself as the agenda. You walk into a palliative care setting, they will look after all these pains. And I thought, are you kidding me? How can you possibly do this? How can yeah. And they do. Because it's an interdisciplinary approach. Because many people get together. Because it's not just one hero working there. It's not about a messianic moment. It's about a community of people all saying, you bring this to me, I will look after the physical symptoms. I will talk to the person and ease some of the psychological pain. I'm here to figure out the money for you. I'm the patient navigator. I'll take you around and make sure you, when someone shouts up some acronym at you like ECG lab, and you say, what is ECG? And the person says, well, it's an electroencephalogram, and what it will do is take a measured pulsation frequency, and the patient has already lost it. They don't know what you're talking about. Okay, but the K1 will say, the patient navigator will say, and then the patient let's go and do that. Yeah. So you need to have all these people working to smooth the way through a difficult time. And some of the most extraordinary moments, like this young man in Bhadia Hospital, He's come from Kashmir, which means, first of all, he's got, huge psychological set of issues. He's 14 years old. He has to have a bone marrow transplant, and he wants to read manga comics. Everybody. Like I was told, Jim, manga comics. Now, I'm not a manga comic person, but I just said, okay, I'll go out and find some manga comics. Luckily, thank heavens for those second-hand sellers of books on Fountain. I buy one set of manga comics and I run back to Bhatia Hospital and say manga. Next day, I get a call saying, Jerry, he doesn't want them. So I said, why? Such LGBTQ issues are उसमें, and he says, this is against my beliefs. Please take the book. See manga comics. I read and took those manga comics. I sat with him and said, what kind? It sounds Naruto and Biruto. It's a name sounded like another word. Were told to me, and I went out and got those comics and we read them peaceably. Then, he sent a year later, he sent me a photograph of himself at his graduation. And you think, okay, those man, forgive her, all that. Even your attitude to LGBTQ, forgive her. You're a boy who needed a bone marrow transplant, it happened. You're healthy, you did your exams, boss, we won. It's just, those are the moments. So I think there are also moments when you go for bereavement counseling, because it's not just end of life, but it's after life as well. And you sit and this is the thing about children. I don't know if they're force grown in that moment. Again and again, I heard this. I was up with him till 3 o'clock, so I don't know. Then 3 o'clock, maybe I fell asleep, and when I got up, he was gone. He told us, I'm feeling better, you go home and rest, come tomorrow morning. And in the night, he went. He chose to go alone. Which incredibly strange. Children often choose to go alone. So moved by that. But in that moment, when you're facing the greatest question, the huge mystery, you choose to care for your parents. It's as if in that moment you have become a parent and you're saying to your father, Ciao, soldier, मैं देख लूं. Oof.
The stories are powerful, and the words are equally important as well. And you mentioned that in your book, you've talked about how some wish palliative care to be called supportive care. Or when Dr. Rajgopal and you went on a home visit, that nobody was a driver, they were a palliative care assistant. So words obviously always matter, but it seems that in this particularly complex area, they matter even more. Why
I
is
love
that?
the fact that English doesn't matter actually in this country. Like palliative care is more like 1% of us are bothered about this word. Rest of everybody has another word for it, and I hope that they will not call it Prakshamta. Like seriously, boys and girls, like not Sanskritized word. Some nice ordinary word we need to find. We need to find a good juicy Hindi word and then suggest. Like Helium comes from cloak, so something that suggests Jahanti Champi, that kind of thing. And I don't see why we can't do something like that. Like something warm and friendly and all. Because this palliative care business has already become kind of like I have my sister has a friend, brother had brain cancer. He was just comatose. He'd been comatose for weeks. And I called him because, in the family, I used to have one, in the wider circle of my acquaintance, I had one speciality, which is I dealt with mental illness. Meaning anyone who had a problem rang me up because I was the expert that they could at least chat to, like, do I take this seriously or should I go to the doctor? And the answer is always yes. Just take it. Everyone will be helped by therapy. Yeah. Just take it and counselor. Let them sit and chat. If you got 450 rupees 4,000 rupees extra per hour, udhar dal. What is your problem? Anyway, you don't have it, different matter, but at least if you have it, pay. And if you, anyone of you is not doing counseling, do some therapy. It will help. That is my little counselor ad, my commercial way. Now my speciality also is palliative care. So people ring me up and say, he's been comatose for 4 weeks, and his wife is saying, we'll do another chemotherapy. Comatose for 4 weeks on a ventilator. Why would you be doing another? What is the point? So I said, do you want me to come and talk to the wife? So she said, will you please? I sat out and she called suddenly and said, no, don't come. She's calling you Maut ka farishta. So I said, well, I understand where she's coming from. I'm not blaming her. It is a moment of human journey, okay? So, and she's an Orthodox woman who's now looking at, is planning on cutting her hair and whatnot after he's gone. So it's called life change, I understand. But, and they went through that chemotherapy and he died. And they spent another, sort of like 2.5 lakhs, which they couldn't do. But that is what, okay, another thing I think, if we keep talking about disease as a battle, and you're a fighter, and you can do this, and you can beat it, this is your body. This is your body. You cannot wage war with it. There is no war to be waged. There is love to be given to that body. Okay. I have a Parsi friend, his name was Behram, and he had stomach cancer. And he had a nodule in the stomach, and the doctor said, now chemotherapy, radiation. He said, no, I am going to do it my way. And he named his nodule Behram Jr. And he would eat. And he would say, Behram, and now eat the tarana. Then he would stop and he would say, now I'm eating for myself. But you stay where you are. And he talked, he made it, and he lived for 12 years. With that stomach cancer, it did grow very much. And finally, when it did grow, he said, I am going to an ashram and I will go the way I want. And he did some concoction where he had almonds crushed in milk and he would only take that and whatnot. But he went the way he wanted. That's a good life too. That's where my book gets it titled from. No in charge. This is your life. You get to say, and that is the central tenet of medical ethics, patient autonomy. You get to say, you're at the table. You're not, the physician is your advisor. Please listen to the advice. Please take it seriously that the doctor probably wants to get you well. That some things will be difficult. But ask as many questions as you want. Pin him down to prognosis. Ask what your quality of life is going to be like afterwards. Tell him what you want out of life. And ask, is this what I'm going to expect? And then make your decision. And may the wisdom of the gods be with you in that point.
We often don't, families don't let patients make these decisions themselves. So there's, some of the doctors in the audience will attest to that. They will often have people come up to them and say, you won't be able to handle it.
This is collusion. Put up your hand if you don't want to know what's going on in your body. How is it that, one of the doctors said that this is what Hindi films has taught us. You tell him cancer, he falls by no one is like that. Your mom is not. She may be old. She may be like full of like adas and nakras and oh, there's a lizard in the bathroom. I will die if you don't shake out the lizard. But she'll face cancer with great calm. She has great resources. She pushed you out of her body. Okay? Endure that pain. You chewed on her breast for months. And she took that as well. She can take it. You don't have to say, shout, you have cancer, you're going to die tomorrow. Okay? You can break it in nice, easy stages. The palliative care team will help you. They even say, we can help with this conversation. But we must be honest with each other. Because I remember one really irate man who I met who refused to was in the state when he was refusing to talk to his family because they had not told him that he had very little time to live. And now suddenly it was on him and he had not done anything. So he said, all of you get out of here, don't want to talk to you. I only want my CA and my lawyer. So the lawyer made the will, the CA settled everything, nominations were filed, this was done, paperwork, yeah, oh, he was a businessman. So he was like, sure. And then suddenly he said, when one of my children was getting married, we forgot to invite my sister onto the stage for a photograph. And she didn't speak to me for 20 years. And I thought, what a stupid woman that she's not talking. So I also didn't talk to her. Now I feel I will call her up and say sorry. And he called her up and said sorry, and she came back. And she went in. Because he had been told. So he could do what he wanted to do. He could clean up. How can we not give this to people? Some will respond badly. But heal your Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. There is denial, there is anger, there is bargaining. All that will happen. But it's natural. Let us go with the natural.
Sometimes doing that helps if you had that conversation beforehand. So, there is now.
Oh, please have that conversation with your caregiver right now. Whoever's the person who's going to be taking you to hospital, tell them about DNR. Tell them about what you want. Tell them how you would like your ashes or your body disposed of. Then say everything. Finish it. They will immediately say what is wrong with you. Because they think you're dying. Because we don't have these conversations unless we're dying. It's better to have them in the best of health. To finish it at that point. Rather than to wait when everyone they say, no, you don't know, and I don't know, he was not in his proper mind because he had been so disturbed by the diagnosis. Do it now, finish it. Have that conversation. Okay. Even your skin can tell. Give your body to science, your skin. They peel it off and they freeze dry and then they put it into burn victims, burns, and those burn victims feel so much better. How can we not want this for ourselves? To extend the use of our body, which has been like a parasite on nature, and taken and taken and taken. Now we can give. Eyes somewhere seeing, skin somewhere healing. How beautiful.
I'm aware that there are lots of people who will have questions. So I'll pause here. There's something I want to say at the end, but I think it would be good to take questions from the audience.
And you can also ask Dhvani questions because we had conversations before this, and she's, on matters of the law and stuff. This is the go-to first. Okay, I'm the writer, and the storyboard. I'm trying to get you ready to do those conversations, to make your will, to get them to ask for that living will. I normally have a little punchy just send around and I say, anyone who wants that living will document, you write an email on this and we will send it to you. So if you have some document like that, let them all write the emails if they would like it so you can have it on hand. And you can do it when you are now, rejoicing in your body. And if you are not rejoicing in your body, rejoice. Yeah.
Yes, so we love to take questions.
Okay, anything. Like you want to ask the rudest question, who are you to write this book? Or anything you want, yeah.
You have taught mainly, my voice is quite.
No, this is taking.
You have taught mainly about children. I would like to know, have you also worked with the older people?
Oh, of course. Jyotsna Gandhi, my favorite story, a lovely woman. She was in a public hospital. She was the person who sent you to the doctor. Okay, so she sat there, and then she had breast cancer, and then she recovered, and she went back to her job. And this horrible man came to one of the doctors and said, "I'm really worried because my wife has breast cancer. Will she be able to cook like she used to?" Seriously? So the doctors, I mean, I would have hit him on the head, but the doctor is a kinder man. So he said, go and see that woman who sent you her. So this fellow went and looked at her and came back and he said, she had breast cancer. You think she's not cooking? And he said, no, she must be cooking. She looks very hatta. So, like, another lovely story, this man and woman sitting there, so sweet. And she was weeping and we were sitting and I said, diagnosis. He said, no, diagnosis कब क्या हो चुका? She's losing hair. So I told, but so he said to me, turned to her and he said, I keep telling her, मेरे को देख. And he took out his phone and he showed her a picture of himself young. And he said, you fell in love with this, no? With this man with lots of hair. And now I don't have hair, but you still love me. And when you don't have hair, I'll still love you. It's such a sweet little moment. Then like a little, this thing, 70-year-old woman, the doctor came and said, worried about hair, worried about hair. I'm guarantee you will grow back. Yeah. It will come back. It does also. So, I mean, I have to say, if you were gloriously luscious, it may be a little less, but it is there and it suffices. Yeah. So the book is available, so you'll see that a lot of it is about it's the middle-aged also, certainly caught in something. A lot of it is about fragility of our lives and amazing resilience of it too. Yes, please. Yeah.
I was just curious how, in your experience, you drew the line between sympathy and empathy when you were interacting with such cases so regularly.
Do you think I had any line? I just went. I would go back from every hospice and whatnot and lie on the bed and weep and weep and weep and blow my nose and weep and then get up and say, now do your work. Sit down and write. Then I would weep while I was writing also. I just keep on. There is no way, I suppose I could, I'm armed myself but I just couldn't. So I just thought, what is there? You're crying in a hotel room. Hotel rooms have seen worse. So it's okay. So I cried a lot through all of it. But what do you do? I was warned again and again, you are to be silent, you are not to be, you're not to intervene in any way. But I just there was a girl sitting in one of these and looking so miserable. And I said, what happened? And they told me that she was going to be, her leg was going to be amputated the next day because she had cancer in the lower part of the leg, and that was 90% guarantee that it's not going to spread. So just cut off the leg. And she wanted to be a dancer. And suddenly I thought, Nache Mayuri. You don't know Nache Mayuri, no? It's the story of Sudha Chandran, who lost her leg in an accident and became a Bharatanatyam dancer, was before and continued to dance after she lost her leg. So I went sneakily when the doctor was looking and I took her phone and I found Nachi Mayuri and I showed it to her. I said, "Ye film dekh." And later, when I finished all my visits, I saw her still watching it. She looked up and she smiled. So I checked when I could, I just wrote into people. I don't care. I don't follow these stupid journalistic rules. They're good journalistic rules. When I'm teaching ethics of Maya, I teach about non-interventional. But in here, it's so it's a very good question. How the answer is exposing by lack of Right. I mean, you cannot not. Yeah. Then you go to this. Some woman is working. Nagama. She has lung cancer. She's living with her husband in one shack, and there is no gas cylinder. She has lung cancer. And she's cooking on a s on wood fire. And what is the pension that they're both living on? 2,500 rupees a month. How can you not slip a 500 rupees as you're going home? It's not going to do anything. But how can you not have? Actually, then at those moments, I just think I shouldn't even be telling you this, but anyway, about that.
I think the empathy translates into solidarity, so maybe.
Though nobody in the journalistic community would have approved us.
Only one question.
Sure.
I am a counselor in crisis intervention for the last 25 years. But 10 years back, I got diagnosed with breast cancer just short of a stage 4. I recovered and I went back. But something changed inside me and I went back to volunteer in the onco daycare. That was 5 years, and for the last 5 years now I'm a my the whole idea of recurrence, will I survive? So I remained in the onco daycare, but for the last 6 years, then I shifted in the same hospital to a palliative care family volunteer council. Now, whoever hears that, so I meet families where where we make them sign the end of life care, and so somewhere, and I still not been able to figure out. People ask me, "Aap cancer mein kyun guse ho?" So there are moments when somebody of a similar age, it comes back at me. Will I be in this? Will I be in the ICU? Will my family and son be facing this? But I've still not found. I'm still doing it. I've still not found the answer as to why I'm there. It heals me, yes, but somewhere, this is everybody who knows me says, step away. I don't want to do that. But the reason, I don't know. So I don't know if you could throw light on that. I've really not done enough introspection. It helps me because I'm a counselor otherwise also. But somewhere, why am I there?
We are magic and mystery wrapped up in tissue. That's it. You are also magic and mystery, and some part of your answer is eluding you. Accept it. Accept that you want to do this. That something in you is calling you to do this, and you are doing. When people ask you why, tell them it's not your business. It's not your business. It's mine. And there will be a moment you will get up in the morning and think, I cannot do this anymore. Step away. We trust the light that is guiding your path. There's some light that is guiding that path. When that light goes up, move. Let nothing be a habit. But accept that there are some gifts which we will not have any answer to. Dhvani, with your mind, could have been in the Supreme Court charging like 5 lakhs for an appearance or something. But we are all. I have heard stories about lawyers that will make each individual case stand up on a dreadful moment time. But in that we have people, I mean, there must be people in her legal cohort who are doing, who are like working with corporates who say, Dhvani, kya yaar? Aja. How much you can make? Why are you doing this? But we are called. And we do not owe anyone answers except ourselves.
But one question.
Can I take another question and then come back if there is another question? And I will be around for right now. Yeah. Please. Someone over there. Yeah.
Ajay, thank you so much for being here. I've been wondering about this for a while now, for a couple of years, and my understanding is that palliative care becomes relevant at the stage of quite a bit of pain and suffering, arising out of terminal illness and so on. But the thing about terminal illness and so on is that it also gives rise to a lot of anger, resentment, being mad at God, all of those elements, which can result in people not being willing to accept palliative care. And I'm wondering what, when you talk about the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological support, also that palliative care can extend beyond just the physical. I'm wondering what role, if any, it can play and how when one simply doesn't want that.
Okay, first, I think, enlightened caregivers, enlightened oncologists will suggest palliative care when you're diagnosed. They'll start to connect with the palliative care team when you're diagnosed. And it'll be a very small interaction there. And as you grow along that path, some people recover completely and then die of a heart attack or something like an accident on the road. Some people, it will recur. And that's when the palliative care teams uh, kind of intervention becomes greater and greater and greater. Now, when you have been with that same team through the whole course of the disease, there's much greater acceptance. It's not a problem to accept a shift because what happens is often a feeling of abandonment in the way that palliative care is now being considered. So, like, I mean, I come to, I've been with the doctor for 10 years. He's looked after my cancer. I mean, on my, I've come back for the checkups. He said, very good, excellent, all your markers are fine, go, chalo, jao, ash karo, And then 5 years later, he suddenly says, oh, it's back. And, but we'll handle this, don't worry. You'll have some, you have lots, don't worry about it. Then one day, he's at the end of the line, he says, okay, now palliative care, and I'm done. And you think, what happened? You were my doctor. You know everything about me. It's a relationship across 10 years. And now, first, oh, now you've got some other doctor to take you. It's an abandonment, a terrible feeling. And this, our limbic system does not respond well to abandonment. It really does not. So therefore, that integration of the support care, now they're trying to call it support care. So that when the patient comes in, they say, okay, now we've finished and here are your meds and this is what you do. Now just go and meet the support care team. So you meet the support care team and they say, okay, can you handle this financially? Are you being looked after? Do you have good support systems? Whatnot? And it's less like, oh, I'm going to die. That, what you were saying about the palliative care being a bad word, that's the problem with it right now. In English, the rest of everybody is our support major. Support. And they are willing to help with the fees and the money also great. I mean, so no one has a problem. As for the anger, man, everybody's angry. Everybody's angry. We have so much hidden anger in this country. It is incredible because we suppress it so much, We're not allowed to tell our parents how angry we are with them. We're not allowed to tell, the boss that we're angry with them. And so we suppress it. We swallow that rage. So that's anger. But palliative care has been shown when you have a palliative care unit, much reduced attacks on doctors. 2 weeks ago, my God, Vadia Hospital again. It's such a busy hospital. The first time I went in, I thought this is a problem because there are hundreds of people milling about in that compound. There are people sleeping there because there's no place to go. So they sleep in the places where they're supposed to be parking. They sleep and they wait for the children because children have 6 months of chemotherapy. So they're sleeping outside there. They brought the other kids, those are playing about, and the inevitable happened. A doctor drove in and backing up, he hit a child in and killed. But the palliative care team had been dealing with this family already. So they stepped in and all day long, they did nothing but absorb his anger and grief. Sat with him and the mother, sat with the doctor. Doctor apologized. But it was just, everyone went home wrecked, beyond wrecked. But one of the team members was the book and toy librarian, oddly enough, because the family wanted him, because they used to him. So he was also there. He told me, he said, I was so tired when I went home. But all I thought was, I didn't lose a child today. They did. So, however tired I am, they're just in far worse state. This is central. That if there is someone who is listening to you, talking to you, helping you, walking with you through them, it is likely to be a better experience in the hospital. Yeah. Okay. And then you went in. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sonalia, welcome up again. So, shouldn't this be across all of medicine? Like you mentioned, type 1 diabetes. Somebody is diagnosed with an autoimmune disease at 25, their life changes. Are we sort of,
For heaven's sake, Anya, I don't know anyone. Does any of you know a woman who all your female friends with your PCOS? It's like a scourge. And what do doctors tell you? Get strong. Sorry, what? Say again. Get strong. Meaning instead of saying something, get strong means Tarzan.
But have a child.
Let's make things easier for you. Okay, so I'm saying how right you are. But this is the reality in this country. Give it a guess what percent of India has access to pain relief? 4%. We are the world's leading supplier of opium, legal opium, medical opium. Our neighbors are very good at non-legal opium. Okay. But we do legal opium. And we send it all abroad. You won't have palliative care in big hospitals because they are afraid of opium. Because opium is ruled by so many laws that every tablet has to be accounted for. And if it is not accounted for, the doctor can go to jail. So which doctor wants to sign prescriptions for opium, which is gold standard for pain relief? So we have, and why is opium so difficult? Because it is not governed by the healthcare system. It is governed by the revenue system. Though all doctors are very happy with that. Because, Amrita, the beautiful Punjabi royal Amrita Kumari, who was our first health minister, you know that she was Christian, so she didn't like birth control. So what did she want to do? She gave women necklaces with green beads and red beads. And green beads for the time for you were fertile, and red beads or vice versa meant it was okay to have sex. Indian men are going to listen to your beads. First. Second, as soon as you had your first child, and grabbed the necklace and broke it. Then she put the beads back in old age, sometimes putting them in. Oh, I delight. Okay. Then the United Nations had to stand and say, Your Majesty, Your Highness, we have a bit of a problem. And as long as the women in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh are producing children to keep the birth rate up, Indian women will have access to abortion. As soon as that birth rate goes beneath replacement, reproductive rights will be taken from you. Prepare for the fact. That's what I'm saying. So, should it be in every section? Of course it should. Of course it should. Can it be? Yes, right now it seems difficult, but who cares about difficult? No one thought polio could be eradicated. But we made it happen in this country with the old supply chain that was required. Because if you let that polio vaccine get played hot again, it's not up. Right? So we managed to eradicate polio. I don't think anyone recognizes what a stupendous job that was. Okay. So we can do this, we just lack the way. Next question.
Hi. So a lot of patients, for them, it's not really a question of being terminal per se.
We are all
Uncertain, yeah, it's very uncertain out there, especially for someone who has been diagnosed or something. So, for those patients, they're torn between kind of recovery as well as not knowing if they will ever be able to recover. And there are also a lot of patients who have language barriers and stuff, right? So India is a hub of medical tourism, and people the world over they come here. So no, there is no one really around to tell these people that palliative care exists. Do we have any organizations or as a system, an institution, like who's there to tell these patients that this is an option too that you can consider?
I hate to say this, but it's me. Right? Okay, that's why I did the book. Because someone's got I hate to say this, but right now it seems to be not that. I'm joking. There are many committed doctors who are actually just hammering away at their institutions and at the government, forming lobbies, going meeting lawmakers. Lots of work is being done. Kerala has palliative care at the village level. The village level has palliative care. I went to Kerala and met Asha Rani. Asha Rani was in one of those polyester, pink, shiny polyester suits. Okay, but the doctor and I were doing a visit, and she was waiting outside in ambush. Okay, and as soon as the doctor came on, she said, one more, one more. Doctor said, okay, but only one more. I have to go. She whisked him off to one house. There was a patient there. One more, one more visit. Off to another house. She managed to force him to do 4 more visits because Asha Rani is a committed social worker, health social worker, and she wants her chawl, like when it was a tenement area, she wants them all there. Okay. I sat down and asked her, what powers you? Because she just was on the job all the time, right? And she didn't have an answer. She looked at me very puzzled and said, this is what we have to do. I was like, so there's some, just in this huge desert, there are some, Sister Luke. Sister Luke, I met her in Bangalore Hospital. She had been called there because she is now a national expert on debriding wounds. Debriding wounds is when you take up, you use a little scalpel and you cut away all the dead flesh and all the whatever's not healthy and leave healthy pink flesh. And how did Dr. Sister Luke, she's a Malayali nurse, how did she get to be this? Because she works in Chandrapur in Maharashtra with no doctor. So she does her debriding with no anesthetic. But you watch her work, it is like watching someone in a meditative state. Because for long moments, her scalpel is there, but not moving at all. Means little bit. And the patient is still talking to his family and whatnot, and it takes her hours to do it. It's only a 6-bed hospital, so she can. But she cleans with such gentleness and precision. It's amazing. So out of the disability of not having a doctor, here is Sister Luke, sort of with the gentlest hands in the world, offering it up to Jesus as she cuts a little at it. Trying not. Whenever there is a patient does one little chumlega, she says, softly. And then she puts her hand on his chest and says, okay, now, take water, take little water. Then she starts. So beautiful. So beautiful. So, of course, lack of awareness, we don't know jot about anything, right? Being mental health. Mental health is summed up with one phrase in all of India. In North India, dil nahi lagta. Everyone is dil nahi lagta. Schizophrenic, psychotic, depressed, everyone is dil nahi lagta. The language sometimes is failing us. We don't have a language for this. Yeah. So but we're starting and we have to do this. We can't just sit around and say, no, no, there is no, oh, this is such a big country, oh, there are 1,537 languages, and what are we going to do? We'll crack it. We did polio, we can crack this. We can crack anything. We just have to get down to it. Yeah. I believe that. In that sense, I'm a great believer. And of course I know we have the least funded health system in the world. But we've never gone beyond some 2% health and education. And education. Both. Wow. But what do? We want tanks.
Okay, hi. You just touched on mental health, and I had a question on exactly that. I've known a couple of people that developed mental illnesses, and it's a very volatile kind, right? You sort of wind up having language weaponized against you for no reason that you can identify, and whichever way you cut it, you come out of it a completely different person than the one that you went. And so clearly, language is not that significant with these sorts of mental health issues, because the more that you, or maybe I'm the one that's mentally ill. I mean, I could be.
We'll go beyond that.
But at least as I understand it, language seems to be slightly less significant, because the more that you use,
It's less significant than what?
Than regulating your frame in front of the person that's mentally ill, so that you can keep an even keel, so that you don't sort of, right. It's less really about the words as such, and much more about your comportment, the way that you are sort of making yourself up, not in a fictional way, but to the person in front of you. So I'm really wondering, like, what does palliative care look like in circumstances like that? Can it exist?
It looks like rags. It's terrible. With all due respects, and I'm sure you're a very good counselor, I met counselors who suggest 6 glasses of water in the morning and everything will be all right. They say, trust in God. They say, this will go away, don't worry. This will pass. You think this will pass. We have not got to the point where we realize how powerful listening is. We feel the need to say. Okay? So it is rhymes. But what do? We have to start somewhere. If we start by saying, oh, it's all, at some point we are going to have a lot more people who will be trained well, who will sit there and even, sometimes I think sympathetic sounds. Our grandmothers used to do that a lot. These are much better than words. It's just saying, I'm mirroring you. I know, I see, I feel your grief and your despair, how distraught you are. I got nothing to say. I have nothing with which to help you. But I know that you're in pain. And I'm recognizing that. If we could only make silence and attentive listening and absorbent just presence part of our repertoire, we would be doing so much for the mentally unwell. But we seem to feel the need. We seem to feel that they want us to give a solution. Trifala lo super. It's like that. I mean, I think one day we will, but there are many more lovely people around who just stumble into this somehow. People who go back when their whole family says step away and let go. There are people who are trying. And it is only by trying. We, in the face of these great mysteries, like someone who's meant after they mentally ill, parents will always tell you, so bright, he had such a good future. You don't know him before this, that what they call horribly the pre-morbid personality. They tell you so many lovely stories about her. And it's just instead of saying, no, God wishes, you just have to say, Yana, Sheena. These sound so stupid. They make you sound stupid. They just don't mind you being stupid. Because if you have nothing better to say, then this sound is enough. I wish we would learn from.
All of those sounds will come back weaponized, and that happens when we don't know what to do.
Everything can be weaponized, friend. Everything can be weaponized. When you said just now, oh, I'm mentally ill, it was as if you were making a joke. I could have taken you up on that and said, mental illness is real. And no one would say, oh, maybe I'm mentally ill, who's ever dealt with a mentally ill person. Because to say that is to demean that mentally ill person. They're not doing it. I'm choosing to accept that you were speaking out to some, that was a good place that you're coming to. But I could weaponize that against you.
Hi, Jerry, I think my question is less about palliative care specifically and more about the stories that you have collected when you're in those rooms or when you're in the bedside. I think it all comes down to this. What is it about the human condition and procrastination? I've asked this question to people in my immediate circle who have been in that situation. Why didn't you go and resolve that like that? That's not the language. But why didn't you go and repair that relationship sooner? And the answer I get is, oh, because I was scared. And then I say that you're scared right now as well as what you told me, right? Because now you are scared of the fact that everything's coming in. And I, as someone who's observed this, I'm aware of this, and I still can't bring myself to
You can put
repair
your
the
video.
relationship or sign that ENR or take that step. So what is it about the human condition and procrastination that you feel discern from this?
I can't remember who said it, but there was one thinker, I think 19th century or 18th century, who said it was in a moment of classic self-praise that man defined himself as the rational animal. We are not rational. There's a lovely image that Freud gives us of, we are like a horse carriage being bolted down the road by runaway horses who are just running where they want, and the consciousness is only sitting on the top, holding on to the reins and panic-stricken saying, this is where I wanted to go, and trying to explain that this is where it is. Okay. We all know, St. Augustine says, why is it he asks God in a moment of deep sorrow? Why is it that I know what I should do? And I do what I should not do. And that gives me so much more pleasure. How is it that everything that we love is bad for us? And what is good for us is some bull. Could you not have made this chocolate? It is some bull. But this is the way it is, I think if everyone were rational, I would lose my job. There would be no literature. Everyone is like, you look at Anna Karenina, you're thinking, why? No, stop it. No. Let us go. No, but it's like everyone. Something bizarre. Okay, but that's how it is. We do it like that. Okay, so instead of asking them these questions, just be sympathetic. Just make sounds. South Indians have a good repertoire. Yeah, sorry.
Just had a non-serious question, ma'am. If you've seen Breaking Bad, and what do you think of it? Like, there's so much lack of any, palliative care for that.
Breaking Bad. Things like drug abuse and chemistry professors who become drug makers and stuff.
So before he turns to that thing.
Okay. I think, I wonder why there isn't palliative care in schools. Okay, like when you think about what a school is, it just seems like the most horrible institution that we have invented. And then if you are at all neurodivergent, then we are all neurodivergent. School is like punishment. Why isn't there palliative care? I think there should be palliative care everywhere. So but it is shocking how little we consider human miseries. How used we are to human misery, accustomed. And if you think that you are not accustomed to it, just ask yourself how much you pay your maid.
Hello, I'd like to say something, please.
And that is where maybe Vidhi could work on, like taking domestic labor and making it actually bringing it within the purview of labor so that they can have unions and laws and some protections. All are servants. And our
Now it's
servants
mute.
often have servants, right? All of them are unprotected by labor laws. Goa, I think, is the only place where there is a rule, like a law, 1,500 per half day. You don't pay it, you don't get a meal. But then Goa is very rich and there's very little labor, so they can afford to. I don't think that's going to happen. 1,500 per half day in Delhi. Surely you jest. Not while there's a supply from Jharkhand. And this is no insult to Jharkhand. I'm just saying that poverty of the locale of poverty often moves out, and so we get our supply of unpaid domestic labor from the places where there is poverty. And then you should just start that.
I have one question because for an allied field of sorts, because as you know, currently the Harishana judgment was given by the Supreme Court of India. And a lot of stories they talk about are stories of hope, stories of where language or sounds will help someone who needs that help. But there are, of course, people around who are sort of misconstruing what is happening. They would say euthanasia or passive euthanasia is legal. I just wanted to hear your thoughts as a person who is a writer, a poet, a journalist. How do you think you reach out to people who have a misunderstanding of this area of care generally?
Okay, to begin with, I think it broke my heart that that family had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get a decision again about something that had already been settled, and each time it seems that a family that's already in such pain has to have legal pain added to it because no one ever went to a court happy, right? Maybe there are some slightly demented souls who enjoy that, and maybe lawyers who get money, but the rest of us who go to court do not go in a happy state. So it really broke my heart that they have to go through all of this to get that agreement. It really pains me that this is being demonized and being misrepresented in so many different ways, as if they are an uncaring family, when really they are a deeply loving and caring family who want the best for all of it happening. The media is definitely to blame for this, but there is also now a democratized media, which means that anybody gets the chance to say anything, and put it up on some social media, and let loose a barrage of venom against an undefended fan. I don't know whether we ever think when we are doing these things, whether social media has encouraged us to be less empathetic about the other person, because the way women are trolled about their weight, about their skin color, about their looks, about what they speak, just sickens me. I can only hope that more and more people will step up, and that this will come to the point at which it will be so part of our landscape that it will not be uh, commented upon. And yes, there is the danger that if it becomes part of the landscape, it will be abused by people who will be trying to, hasten the departure of someone who's standing in the way of an inheritance or property matters or all those. But there is no human institution that is not liable to human perversion. And we must remember.
I thought the company
Please,
Hello. I have a question, please.
Oh, thank you. Jerry Pinto, you've just touched my heart. See, we are in this business of healing as doctors, and what is really mostly missing practice is the human dimension. We miss the point that science is for the human being, not the other way around. And this is what, see, palliative care is the human side of medicine. It is not confined to end-of-life. As you correctly said, it starts at the beginning. For example, enlightened oncologists, you said, start, yes, because there's a psychological pain accompanying the diagnosis of the condition. And that is, so we are addressing human suffering, all its complex dimensions. That is what it is, and that's what is missing. That's why whatever you say makes a lot of sense to me, and I can see what we have been fighting for in this end of life campaign. We are not fighting for end of life as such. We are fighting to bring it into conversation. The human dimension. And whatever has got normalized, we want to neutralize that. You've normalized the insensitivity to the human side, suffering, the pain. We have normalized commercialization. We have normalized neglect of a huge human component of medical care. That's why, whatever you said, it rings a bell, it touches the heart. And it is worth carrying to the bedside. But the presence of the physician as a human being is very important, just as a scientist or manipulator of medicines or procedure driven, this what do you call it, catheter driven, and these sort of things are very important. But yes, the huge component is the spiritual presence, your connectedness to the patient, to the story. You give so many beautiful stories. Apparently, capturing the human moment, not just the disease moment. I thank you for this.
Something we have tried to increase. We have many more doctors who remember that at that moment of illness, the gaze of the patient on the doctor is the gaze of a believer in God. They look on you as God. And please be a kindly God. We have enough unkind gods. Thank you so much. I'm glad.
Thank you very much, Jerry, for sharing, for speaking. For everyone who came and who's listening online, I think the lesson I'm going away with is that if it can be this way, how can we not all ask for it to be like this everywhere, in whatever way we can? On that note, please take this with you wherever you go and do read Jerry's book to see more of these and learn more about these stories. Thank you.
And really, I would forgive you if you, when you have read this book, make it an ambassador. Give it to someone else. Let it go out into the world. There's a lovely line that came from the 13th century poet. He said, Saraswati ki bhandari ki badi anokhi baat, ज्यो ज्यो बांटे त्यों त्यों बड़े बिना बांटे घट जाए. I knew there was a number one. Not a Oh, that is